Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries. And today I asked the question, is it possible to be a young woman today and be modest in today's world and enjoy your life? Well, there are many young women today that are just dropping in standards of the way they dress and the way they think, because that's what the world says. And they want to reach the peer pressure of the world. But we have a young woman on the show today who dresses modestly, and she's been doing so for quite a while. And we're going to interview her today. Her name's Jocelyn. And we're just going to find out, is it practical or possible to be modest today in this unmodest world? So we're going to see Jocelyn right now, and we're going to ask her these questions. And Jocelyn, why don't you introduce yourself to the Real Life crowd and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Jocelyn, and I've been Torah observant for about 6 years now. I grew up in a Christian home, and my parents homeschooled me all the way through 12th grade. And then I got a certificate in biblical studies while I was still at home. So even though I'm in my mid-20s, I've never lived away from my parents, which I count a true blessing. And I have the opportunity to work in Hebrew Roots Ministry now with Paul and with Eddie Chumney, and it's just really neat to be a sponge, continuously learning, always being challenged in my walk.
Well, Jocelyn, you're a young girl, and you dress in very modest fashion. You wear a head covering, and many young girls today just don't see any value in that. So can you talk a little bit about just living modesty in today's world?
It wasn't something that came necessarily easily for me. The first thing was we were searching to see really what the scriptures had to say. We had been challenged to go deeper in our walk, and as we did that and we began studying, the head covering came up and the modest dress came up because we were visiting a Mennonite church at the time. And they taught us that it was, quote, because of church rules. And we're like, that's never a good enough reason to do something, because then when you leave that church, you no longer do it. It has to be scripturally based. And so I really started reading and studying, and my dad started reading and studying, and we came to the conclusion that it was a literal material covering based on our understanding of 1 Corinthians 11. And then in the last few years, I've been challenged, okay, where do you find it in Torah? And I looked to the story of the bitter waters, where the woman is being uncovered, and she loses that covering as she's being exposed to the decision of whether she really was faithful to her husband or not. And just even in historical examples of the drawings in the catacombs, we see the fact that the modest women were depicted with head coverings. And so as I began to wear a head covering, it was really amazing to see the difference in how people reacted to me. I mean, I've had people ask, are you Catholic? Are you a nun? Are you Muslim? Where do you come from? And it's a wonderful witnessing opportunity to really be able to tell people what I believe and why I believe. And the modest dress has been something that I didn't grow up with. My mom and I both wore shorts up until my mid-teens. And I remember one day in 2001, my dad and I had gone to Walmart to get boxes for us moving. And when he had gone to get them, I was standing there waiting for him. And I was wearing a modest tank top, in the sense that it's not, one of these really scooped ones, but it's not modest in any sense of the biblical word. And I literally felt like I was standing there wearing nothing in front of all these people. And we got back in the car. As soon as we got home, I went flying in and grabbed a skirt and a blouse out of the closet, and I never went back. And it's been amazing, the difference in respect. We were going out to eat, and we were walking in the restaurant, and there was a young couple around my same age that, apparently were boyfriend and girlfriend coming out, and he stopped and he held the door open for me. And the girl said to him, hey, how come you never do that for me? And she was dressed in the way of the world. And it just really was an example to me of how when I dress as a lady, I'm treated as a lady.
What would your advice be to other young girls out there today that struggle with this issue of are they dressing modest, or should they dress modestly? Or some people even say they want to, but their parents they don't understand. What would you say to these people?
I think first of all, you have to come to conviction in your heart. You have to get right between our Father Yahweh and say, okay, Yahweh, what do you want me to do? And when you have that conviction in your heart, no matter what, nothing is going to stop you. I mean, my parents weren't to that same point at the same time I was. They came very soon after. And I didn't have to struggle with my dad saying, no, you can't dress modestly. He appreciated the fact that I wanted to dress modestly. But my mom was still wearing pants for 6 months after I did. So it was a struggle for her, and it was encouragement to her to see me. But sometimes it was, it was a little different for one of us to be and one not to be. And I think the first is when you have that conviction, you can then share that conviction out of love. And when you share a conviction out of love, whether somebody agrees with you or not, they can appreciate the fact that you shared honestly and you shared it in true love with them versus this is what the Torah says and this is how you have to do it.
How do you feel when you see young girls out in society and they're just dressed immodest and they're not covering their head? How do you feel?
I really feel bad for them. I mean, first of all, it goes through my mind, do they realize what they're doing? Do they realize how much of themselves they're advertising? Do they realize what they're asking for from guys? I mean, a guy that is God-fearing and that really has a heart to serve the Father is going to look for a girl that's modest. I mean, that's one of the things that our hearts are drawn to when they're pure. So even though they want a guy who's just going to love them truly and absolutely adore them, if you're not modest, you're not necessarily attracting it. Just like honey attracts a fly to it, we attract by what we're dressing and how we're acting different people and different characteristics. And so when I dress modestly, I notice that the guys respect me and that there's a difference in their relationship. It's very easy to set healthy boundaries because I've already said, I'm a woman who fears Yahweh and I want to respect him in how I dress, and I ask the same of you without even saying a word.
Sure, and you have a ministry online and you teach about several different topics. Can you briefly talk about the different topics you talk about?
Sure. My ministry is called Standing in Yahweh's Hand because one of the big things for me was faith and trust. As a female, it's not easy to walk by blind faith. I mean, we have the scriptures to rely on and to trust, but we can't necessarily reach out and touch God. But when we really are trusting him, he's got us in the palm of his hand. And so that is the whole heart of my ministry, is to be able to help portray that trust and how we live that trust out through our lifestyle. So I teach about how a woman is to be filled with the Spirit of the Lord and how we live that out in our dress, in our mannerisms, in our interactions with other people. I even teach about finances, how to be debt-free, why the Father says to owe no man anything but to love him, and how that gives us the freedom to serve. And, from a young age, my parents began teaching me biblical principles, and even though I'm young, I've been able to experience a lot of things because they took the time to pour into my lives. So one of my favorite topics to talk on is standing on my parents' shoulders. They gave me that foundation to build upon. And even if your parents aren't believers, they give us a foundation. They may have taught you not to steal, and they may not have told you it came from the Ten Commandments, but it was a biblical principle they taught you. And so every single one of us has something from our parents, positive or negative, that we can learn from and stand on. So my goal is to be able to impact that next generation as well as other ladies and to really challenge them to think about what the Father has called them to and how to really follow him with their whole heart.
If somebody wanted to contact you to talk to you more about these issues, how can they get in touch with you?
They can visit my website, standinginyahwehshand.org. It's standingin, YHVHS, hand.org.
Okay, I also understand you have a women's retreat coming up. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, it's a single women's retreat for targeting young ladies 16 to 30, and it's a chance for them to get together and from a Hebraic perspective really study the scriptures out and understand what the scriptures have to say for us as young ladies and how we should be focusing on serving the Lord and serving our families and becoming the right young woman instead of focusing on who that right young man may be.
And when is that retreat going to be?
November 30th through December 3rd in Ohio. So I hope a lot of the young ladies watching this video can join us.
And that's 2011. Do you do other retreats if somebody's watching this after that time?
We're hoping to make that an annual retreat, and I'm also available to come and do different events for various congregations.
Great. And again, how can people get in touch with you?
They can go to standinginyahwehshand.org, and that's YHVHS hand.org.
Wonderful. Anything you want to say before we close?
You know, I think that one of the most amazing things about our journey into Torah is the fact that we go for the depth. It's not that I'm just busy being a part of the world, but as I continue to follow what the Father is asking me in my life, He continues to provide blessing after blessing, just things out of the blue. And when you seek Him with a pure heart, He will begin to teach you everything you need to know. And He'll put the teachers, He'll put the examples into your life that you need to hear. And so I would just say, spend lots of time in Scripture and in prayer.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us here on Torah Life Ministries.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, there it was. That was Jocelyn. I definitely recommend you contact her. She's a very modest girl in today's immodest world, but there's a lot more to Jocelyn and her ministries. And if you're a young woman out there looking to learn more about Yahweh, Torah, or any of our other ministries, getting out of debt and things like that, get to a website. I highly recommend it. I'm so pleased that I get to do this for a living and bring wonderful girls like Jocelyn on the show to get this message out to the world. So I pray that you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions, post them below the video. Until then, have a great day, and we'll see you again soon. Shalom, shalom.
Seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's way.